Oh, are you done, Ian? Oh, okay. We'll get started here. Anders is going to come down in a second. He'll talk about advocate recruitment. But in the meantime, Lindsay has a polo with her. Yes, a round of applause. This polo, it's actually a coincidence, this story, but we went through all the polos, we picked this one out, and then I showed it to Anders and I said, look at this cute polo that we picked out. And he said, oh my gosh, those are the exact same ones we picked out for last year, but never even had the chance to order because of COVID. So we're very excited. If you have not already, please, please, please get us your shirt size, fill out that third day shirt form. We're ordering name tags, polos, all that good stuff in the next few weeks. So we need that info to move forward.
And this is the men's fit. The women's fit has no buttons and is more of a V-neck. So if you have more of a preference now after seeing it and want to change what style you'd like, just let Bree and I know, and we'll change it on the sheet before Shannon sends the order out. So if you want to check it out, it'll be over by our little coordinator bin.
And if you come to my office, we have samples and sizes, so you guys can see what size you might prefer. Right now, we have small through a large sample from what Anders ordered last year, but we're also getting an extra large. There is also an extra small.
This one's a medium, men's fit. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Ando is here though, so I'll let him take the stage. If you guys haven't had the chance to meet Anders, he did come in at the beginning of class. He's the Associate Director of Recruitment, one of my BFFs, and he runs our Advocate program in conjunction with Alicia Palmer, so he can tell you a little bit more about the program, because they're recruiting.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. Not only did we not have time to order those for last year, we also didn't have time to for the ones that we got. So this actually was a little happy accident because I actually get to pay for shirts that I took from this company
a year
12 months ago. Yeah. So thank you, Shannon, for letting me come in today. I'm here to just take a couple, 2 minutes from you all to hopefully plug and promote the Advocate program, as Shannon mentioned. This semester that we're currently in is my first semester going to be involved in overseeing the program. For those of you who aren't familiar, our advocates are the student ambassador group that are our tour guides. They help with our daily visit tours, our MSU Saturday and Friday programs, all of our campus preview days. It's another opportunity for students to continue to get involved on campus. And obviously this is a good group to speak with about this. Because you are already taking that step to be involved and be identified as leaders on campus. And this is just sort of another avenue to continue that interest in university engagement through the Office of Admissions. And so our application process is currently open. Just as a brief overview, it's a class similar to this one. It's a year-long class that students would take with Alicia and I, getting to learn some of the ins and outs of Montana State University, degree programs, history and tradition. So a lot of that is in alignment with the work that you all are already doing. The class is 400 level, just like this one. It's both in the fall and the spring semester. That's kind of the one difference. It's a 2-credit class. Not overwhelmingly daunting in terms of the amount of work that you put in. But I think you can speak with a lot of the current advocates. It's a fun prospect and an experience. You get to work with a lot of our incoming students that are checking out campus and kind of get to sell the things that you all enjoy about this place to students that we're on their radar currently. So our tour groups are usually in groups of 10 to 15 students, generally speaking. They come from all over the country. We have seen a huge increase in the number of families coming to campus in recent years. This year has been different because we've been limited in our numbers. But it is a fun experience. And next year will be my first full year overseeing the program. So we're going to do some things differently here and there with tours and with who we're having come into class. But we're hoping to make it a pretty fun experience overall to make sure that the students that are involved with the program get the absolute most out of it. Quick show of hands, how many of you are or have been advocates before? Okay, 4 in here, 5 in here, nice. can any of you all speak to your experience in the program over the years and what you like about it, what your peers and classmates might want to hear about it?
I gave a tour yesterday. I love doing this because I was plugged in there. I work at Museum of Rockies, and whenever I get a chance to plug it in a tour, I do. I saw two families I gave a tour to after they mentioned it. I told them to.
Nice.
So that was super fun.
Solid.
Fun time.
How about you?
Yeah.
She's braiding her hair.
Not an issue, I have to say.
I mean, I can still speak about it. This is my first year being on the cabinet. I didn't do it last year. But I really like just getting to meet all the incoming students. And I mean, I was giving tours over winter break also. So I would give a tour in the morning, and then later in the afternoon, I would see people that I gave a tour for in the morning, just walking around, and like sometimes they're like, "Oh, you gave me the tour this morning. You did a really great job." Like it's just a really fun experience. Like I just really like it.
Yeah.
To learn a lot.
It's the position that you all are in currently as orientation leaders. You'll get a ton of positive feedback once you see the students from your groups and the students that you interact with as orientation leaders once they're here on campus. You know, you'll hear a lot of that positive feedback. The same can be said for our AdvoCat program. You know, there's all sorts of testimonials out there where students said, yeah, I heard from a student, I saw him on campus today. They told me that I was the one who gave them their campus tour, and that visit day was why they chose coming to MSU. So it's kind of just, again, this positive reinforcement of the university, of leadership opportunities, and engagement opportunities, just to continue being involved in our campus community. So.
And like, I'll add to that too. You guys are being trained up on tours, right? But you saw how much goes into giving a campus tour, and you guys are really going to give, you know, the quick and dirty over the course of the summer orientations. But over the course of the semester, that's when you really get to know the small nitty-gritty details of. It's funny that we're actually doing nitty-gritty today for parents, but the nitty-gritty details of different services, different programs, history, and kind of pulling all of those things together. I think you really start to retain it a lot more when you're the one giving a tour weekly on the specified date and time.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to take too much time. We've probably already taken enough of it. I do have posters here. If anyone is interested in looking into the program, as I said, our application is currently open. You can find it through the QR code or on the URL that's posted on here. If any of you have questions about it, I really always encourage you to talk to your peers and classmates that are involved with the program. They're going to be able to give you kind of the straight and narrow, straightforward answers. But I'm also available to answer any questions. If you have questions on what the class entails, what the responsibilities and duties are, just any random questions, I'm more than happy to hear from any of you all who might be interested, but just kind of on the fence still. Let me know. I'd be happy to talk you through anything, walk you through anything. And I'm sure your classmates who are involved with the program can be as well. So I'll leave these on the desks by the exit. So if you want to take one on your way out, more than welcome to. But yeah, thank you so much for doing what you're doing currently. And for those of you considering, thank you so much for considering. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jan.
All right, check one. Andrew's already came in and talked. Look how far we are. All right, we're going to kick off campus and community spotlights, do some shout outs. I'm going to review two of the big questions that were on the midterm. We're then going to have a handout for you guys to talk a little bit about parents and managing parents throughout our boot camps and also just general tips and tricks. We'll then do a nitty-gritty parent presentation. This is a new but old presentation. Essentially, I used to give it when I was an orientation leader. We went away from it the last few years, and now we're bringing it back, actually. So for some of our returners, there are bits and pieces that might be familiar, but probably haven't seen the full presentation all the way through. We're then going to do the review game and then quiz number 4. All right, campus and community spotlight. For those that are interested, there is a virtual trip to the moon planned. Ooh. So essentially, we have a professor on campus. We have many professors on campus that work closely with NASA, but Dr. Brock Lemaire's is essentially a computer and electrical engineer, computer science engineering professor, and he works really closely with NASA on some of the satellites and balloon projects that we've done recently. And so the MSU Alumni Foundation is going to have a Zoom. You register at the MSU Alumni Foundation website, and that's going to be tomorrow at noon. The DISC is also doing a viewing of the documentary Disclosure, excuse me. It's in celebration of Trans Day of Visibility, and so there's a movie night. It is going to be back in this room, and it's tomorrow from 6:30 to 8:30. We do have a panel this week. If anyone's interested in nonprofit careers, essentially they have a panel coming of folks from all across Bozeman to come and speak about their experiences and professional development. That's on Thursday. This middle one is kind of cool. This is actually the 7th year that we've held the 3-minute thesis competition. These are graduate students in the College of Engineering who have actually applied and been selected. They have to take their 180-page thesis and boil it down into 3 minutes and explain why it's useful or something to keep in mind for the average person. So kind of cool if you're looking for examples of like research or things that students are doing on campus. And then we do have a movie night on Thursday for in celebration of Easter weekend. If anyone is interested in viewing The Passion of the Christ, that's going to be in Norm 165, which is that big lecture that's in the round in Norm. What else is happening on campus this week? What else would we like to highlight? Hallie?
Tomorrow is the primary election for ASSU. So you vote for an exec team, vice president and president to move on into the general election. And then the debate is also tomorrow, so that's going to be at noon. People can't go in person, but it is going to be on Facebook. I think it's going to be streaming live. And that's on the Office of Student Engagement.
Awesome. Primary elections, OSE, it will probably be on Cats Connect too, I bet, so that would be another good spot to look. Bree?
Highlight. 2016.
Highlight Canyon, closing.
This is when you can,
The spring runoff.
you can take your bikes up there.
Yeah.
If you really want to get into it. So
No more driving, walking, biking.
Sorry, what are
March 3rd.
April 1st.
Midnight wine night.
Until May 16th. There we go. Yeah. Did someone else have hand raised? Owen? Do we have any shout outs? You get a shout out, you get a shout out, Oren gets a shout out.
I don't get a shout out. Alex gets a shout out.
Oh, Alex gets a shout out.
Alex did, she mentioned her Advocates tour that she did yesterday in the cold. I saw her at the SRO after she did it, and I was like, ooh, bummer, but she did it anyway. It's
So,
with that.
Snaps to Alex for getting a cold but great tour.
Shout out to Tristan for being the first person to come to my office hours yesterday. Shout out to
Tristan
him.
Snaps, going to the coordinator's office hours. Julia.
Another shout out to Alex, because Kentucky is sick.
Shout out to Alex. Double snaps today. Okay, with that, really quickly, I am going to review because a few of you got this right, but there was not many who got all of these correct. So essentially, we are going to work through just a few of these really quick. So one of the questions on your midterm was essentially if a student wants to study fish wildlife, they're at a level 250. Let's see if we can pull this up. All right. Level 250, if a student wants to take 5 classes, what would you recommend for their first semester? So the way that we work through our curriculum, right? Let's see if we can make this bigger too. Is we're going to look at the freshman year fall recommended courses, reference that against their math load, and their math level, what credit load they're looking at, and what prereqs they have. So when we look at Wilds 201, no prereqs, great. First credit, 1 credit, fall, 1 class, excellent. When you look at Bio B 170, is Wait, let me go back. Yeah, Bio B170, there's no prereqs, right? Great, second class. When you look at Chemistry 121, what level do we need to be at to take Chemistry 121? 300. What level is this student at? 250, which means that they need to work their way up in their math classes. If they need to be at level 300, we are going to recommend that they take this Math 021 121 COREC, because that is the level 250. It's green, it matches. Does that make sense? A lot of you put just Math 121. We're going to recommend the COREC, so keep that in mind, because they can't take Math 121 here. So I gave some of you full credit if you just put Math 121, but please keep in mind that technically they're level 250, which means they can't take it without the COREC of 021. Does that make sense? Yes?
Can you see that answer?
In D2L, can you guys not see them?
I can't right now, but I don't know if I'm doing it right.
We can go back and I can check the permissions to see if you guys can. But if you guys got something wrong or if I had feedback, I did try to put that into the comments section.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, then if you look at the next class, it's choose one of the following. So if you guys put any one of these three, I would have taken it. And then university core and electives. So essentially with this one, we would have taken any core or any elective that you recommended that wasn't a IN, wasn't a Q, wasn't a CS, or wasn't an R. Because all of those core categories are going to be fulfilled in this curriculum, right? So you can see that they have a CS class, you can see that they take a natural science course. You're going to want to avoid taking one of those classes if you're trying to recommend a core. If they're just looking for an elective, like an activities class, we would have accepted that, for example. Does that make sense? Do we have questions about that one? Cool. For the next one, we had a business marketing student. Oops, I should have just left the math one. There. All right, so if you were looking at these ones, you'll notice EOMB, wild, the COREC, any of the following, can't take chemistry yet. For this one, we have a marketing student. They are going to be in AP classes. Sorry, I didn't have these pulled up before, guys. Alrighty. There we go. So they're going to be in AP Art History, level 300 math. They want to take 4 classes. We take a look at this, BGen 104 or BGen 204. Can anyone tell me the difference between those two?
204 means you're a transfer.
204 is if you're a transfer student, or if you're coming in like non-traditional student, for example. So when you guys look at the prereqs for that course, it should have specified that. Some of you put 204, but it is specifically 104 if they're an incoming traditional aged freshman that we would recommend. Economics 101 way of thinking. This is going to be, doesn't have a prereq, so we would recommend that. We would then look at survey of calc. When you look at survey of calc 161, what math level is it? What math level is this student? Can the student take that math level? No. So we would make sure that they need to catch up in that math class so they can stay on track. And so we would recommend that they take math 121Q so that they can progress, right? See that arrow? So they can progress through to math 161Q. If any of you would have written a note like, I would register them for this, but then encourage them to do Ed Ready, totally an option. Students can try to use that prep level to place up a math level, right? But if the student wasn't ready to do that or didn't want to commit to that Ed Ready prep level, we would recommend math 121 so then they can progress through and take survey of calc the following semester. If you look at AP Art History, if they have credit coming in, that's going to fulfill their art core. So we would want to avoid recommending any of our art core classes for this student because they already have that credit fulfilled. The very last one, we have a core. So essentially we would have accepted any of the core that aren't already fulfilled in that major. So not IS, US, Q, or R, any of those.
So I have a question. Macroeconomics has a co-rep of, college algebra, 121, and, economics way of thinking is a prereq for macro. So would you still encourage them to take college algebra since it's a co-rep?
If they have that specific section that's then offered with the co-rec for the following semester, they maybe wouldn't need to take that math class. That's something where the advisor could probably help them if it's offered that semester and if there's availability. But generally, we're going to still recommend that they take the economics way of thinking because that then will prep them for the macroeconomics. And that doesn't have a prereq.
And you would still have them registered for college algebra though?
I would say generally yes, unless it's specifically something that they talk about with their advisor where they're like, no, they said that I'm taking this math co-rec with this option. Because it's possible that the advisor might reserve those for specific people, like specific math courses or college readiness or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally wrong. But doesn't economic way of thinking require a 300?
Let me look, but when I looked earlier, it did not. Because I did go through all of these. Math level 3 suggested, but not a prereq.
God.
So again, that might be something that they talk about with their advisor, but ultimately not going to stop them in task force when they go to register. That's thank you though, Jess, yeah. Do you guys have any questions about those scenarios? I know that they might feel repetitive right now because you're like, yeah, we get it. But on your guys' quiz, I saw a variety of answers. And I want to make sure that we really understand that math level does dictate a lot. And so if they're not at the right math level, we're going to generally recommend that they take the prerequisite to that math level so they can get set up for the next course. Returner group 4, these are all of our students that had turned in their returner group 4 as of around 1-ish today. If you guys have submitted it right before this, you're not on that list, but thank you for doing so. So reminder that that is due at midnight tonight. This is also your prize group collection, so it's okay if you did anything outside of prize collecting, that can still be counted as your returner group reflection. But then just keep in mind that this is the group that you'll also work with for any of those collections. Question, who went to Backcountry Burger Bar? What group? Isaac, will one of you volunteer to go pick up, or will you work with your group if I send you more information on picking that up? Great. I'll send you guys emails, but great, they want to donate. Backcountry Burger Bar. Otherwise, nitty gritty, we're doing the presentation today for you guys. It's then going to be up for practice on April 6th, due April 8th. So that's kind of one of your final outlines that we'll have. Any questions about any of those pieces before we jump into nitty gritty for you guys? Yeah, Emma?
So when we got our prizes, like we went to Mackenzie River and they just handed us 2 gift cards. Do I just give those to you or am I supposed to hold on?
Either way, if you're like fearful that you're going to lose anything, you guys can always come to my office, drop anything off. They're not technically due, like your prize collections aren't due until the very last day of the semester. So if you keep getting them throughout the next few weeks, you can always continually come in and drop them off. So if you have them, great. If you're storing them in a safe place, don't use them, you know. But my office would be the best place to drop them off, yeah. Okay, nitty gritty. Nitty gritty is essentially the presentation that you guys give to parents. The students are not in the room. And so this is a completely full audience of parents. That might sound kind of scary for some of you guys, but ultimately parents are sometimes even more fun than their students because they've been through college, or maybe this is their first time helping students through college. And so they have a lot of really good questions and a lot of really good insight, and they might just need generally more help than some of the students too, because they really want to understand the process. And so I'm really excited to bring this presentation back. Bree is going to hand out for you guys the managing parents tips and tricks. You guys already have them. Excellent. So basically what we've done is on the first page, we have some general recommendations. On the back page is some FAQs for you guys to think about. You might want to work these questions and answers into your nitty-gritty presentation. And then at the bottom of the front side, you're going to see general resources and contacts. Preface this by saying that is not all of the resources and contacts we have on campus, right? There are so many to mention. These are just some of the most common services that we end up recommending to parents, but there's a long, long list, I'm sure. And that's where we encourage you guys to pull on your knowledge or ask us questions, do your research, so we can always make sure that we're directing parents to the right places. General reminders, we ask that you practice good public speaking, with good posture, being loud, generally being clear and concise with your communication, making good eye contact, kind of all of the things that Molly first went over when practicing good public speaking, right? But things to keep in mind that are kind of helpful for parents is that parents really want to know about your personal experiences. So we really encourage you guys to speak from your perspective, your opinion. With that, not to scare you guys, but just generally, sometimes parents take things a little bit more as like, that's a matter of fact. And so that's why we try to recommend that you say, like, this is my opinion, or this is my student experience. Because sometimes people see a polo and a name tag and they're like, well, someone at MSU told me this. And sometimes parents will do that a little bit more than students do. With that being said, generally parents are really awesome, like I said, so it's nothing to be scared about, but that's why we just really encourage you to speak a little bit more from that student experience throughout all of this presentation. Trisha.
Where are the students?
They're going to be in another presentation that's probably like a big lecture or a big, sorry, not lecture, but they'll be doing another presentation with like a staff member, and we'll be helping manage that. To give you guys a little bit of background about the boot camps right now, I am trying my very darndest to finalize some of the details of our summer sessions. I just got some room confirmations from the registrar's office, so I'm really trying to figure out how group rotations work with those space capacities. And then, of course, space capacities and group sizes have changed over the last few weeks in Gallatin County. And so I had a plan, and then we're like, redoing the plan. And so hopefully more information to come, but it's possible that we might have some orientation leaders like with their students at this time, and then other orientation leaders with the parents, and then you might swap. So hopefully get you guys more and more information as soon as possible.
Will we be changing the plan based on the changes of regulations in the county up until the boot camps themselves, or will we eventually reach a point where it's like, this is how we're gonna do it, regardless of any?
So, yeah, so the question was, will we pretty much be changing the whole schedule up until the boot camps, or will we just get to a point where we're like, this is the schedule, this is the plan? So ultimately, we are modifying it still while we have the flexibility to do so. After a certain point, we really need to nail down reservations for space and facilities and presentations. And so there will be a point where we'll be pretty inflexible about changing things. But as of right now, we're trying to modify it based on the fact that we can at least have a little bit bigger of a group in some of the ballrooms or in our outdoor spaces. Yeah. So.
Is registration for like the boot camps like live, like how people do?
Super live, and we have a very strong class right now. We have over 2,000 registered already for our online sessions. Our boot camps are at about 160 for our second one, about 150 for our third one. And then our first one is sitting right around 110. And so we're doing some really heavy pushes to try to fill that first one. The reason for that is because the way we've designed it is that they have to do their online session before they do the boot camp, right? So we're actually seeing the second and third one fill up faster because students can do the online session 1, online session 2, or online session 3. The only people to sign up for the first boot camp are the people who first completed the online one. So that's why we're actually seeing those numbers be smaller at first and then grow a lot over the course of the summer. But we'll keep doing like really huge pushes and registration pushes. We have a bunch of parents too. So I can send you guys more and more information on that too if you're interested. Maybe we'll review it sometime next week too. We kind of give that, yeah. Yeah,
What is the capacity for the boot camps?
300. Yeah, so you guys will still have orientation groups that are kind of similar to what students have experienced in the past. So it'll be between like 15 and 25, depending on the session, but probably right around like 16, 17 students per group. Yeah, you got it. Okay. I'm also going to do this presentation as if you're parents, right? Okay, so the purpose of our meeting today is we're going to review a bunch of different information that impact your students, both during enrollment, but also over the course of the next 4 years for them. We understand that some of you might be more interested in certain pieces, so we do encourage you to ask questions as we go, and then we will leave about 10-15 minutes at the end for just Q&A. Ultimately, this entire presentation is really going to help parents and family members understand how to support and empower your students. We really understand that when parents come to our boot camps, they are just as much a part of the Bobcat family as our students. But we also really believe that this is the first step towards your students taking control over their academic experience, right? So we want to give you the knowledge and resources to support your student, but we're also trying to make sure that they feel empowered and taking ownership over that experience as well. To first touch on, we're going to touch on MSU technology to begin. For your students, when they first got accepted, they got a student ID on their acceptance letter. It's going to be in the form of a number. This is also going to be the student number that they use to then claim their net ID. The most important thing to know is that their net ID is essentially what gets them into any technology at MSU, but their student ID is what's going to be on their CAP card and on that student ID when they first come in. Obviously, with parents, you guys aren't going to be accessing all of their technology, but we did just want to give you a tiny bit of background. My info is essentially the piece that students will use to manage all of their personal information. So if your student ever at any point calls you and says, I'm not getting any emails from MSU, which I'm sure is not a problem for you guys, right? But if you are finding that they are having a hard time updating their personal information, that is all housed in my info. This is also where they can find their schedule once they register for classes. This is also where students are going to be paying their bill and confirming their bill. And if they work on campus, it's also their timesheet. So it's kind of all things personal information throughout their 4 years. Tab Connect is where they completed their online orientation. This is also where OSE houses a lot of our different events and programs and promotions. So if your student is looking for a way to connect, it's really nice to be able to log into Tab Connect. DegreeWorks is essentially where they can work with their advisor to plan their 4-year degree. I also like to note there is a big what if feature. If your student calls you and is really nervous because they want to change majors or they just don't know if they're in the right path, this is a really cool feature to point out to your student. And of course, it's actually where they go through and register for classes. This is also where they can add or drop classes after their online orientation. And then D2L is essentially where they're going to have any of their classes throughout the semester. And so they can communicate with professors, they can see their grades, they can submit their assignments. We know that you guys as parents aren't necessarily going to be logging into these things for the student. We actually don't encourage that, right? But we want to make sure that you understand there is a place for all of these different resources. So if your student calls you and is confused, you can kind of help them navigate those pieces. Yeah, Jess?
Like checking your email daily.
So we do encourage students to, recommend that they check their email regularly. What I always like to recommend is that if you have a bunch of different emails, if you have your student email through MSU, you have maybe your primary email, and then maybe you have a different email that you used a long time ago, I always try to encourage students to forward them to one place. because that will really help them get the information for the email that they're checking regularly. So you can't always have your student ID your student MSU email forwarded to your personal email as well. We do also send parent emails regularly, and we'll talk a little bit about Bobcat Parent Family Program throughout and at the end as well. So for academics, your student is essentially here because they want to pursue a 4-year degree. To graduate, they need to obtain 120 to 128 credits. That might sound like a lot, but we actually recommend right around 15 credits a semester, keeps you on track for that 4-year degree. The really nice thing that I like to point out for parents and family members, and in terms of the financial piece, is that students are actually a full-time student when they are at 12 credits. Anything between 12 credits and 21 credits is no additional cost, right? So it's a really nice way to catch up on classes, maybe pursue a minor or double major, do the honors college, and stay on track. We do also remind students that a credit is essentially 1 credit of class, means 1 hour of class in the classroom, excuse me. But we recommend around 2 to 3 hours of outside study time. So kind of keep that in mind as you're working with your student. To attain a degree at MSU, there are essentially 4 big parts. They're going to take their major requirement classes, their electives, any foundational or prereq courses, but then also core. And I'll touch on core in just a moment. Some big reminders for parents, we're on a semester basis. So fall, spring, we do also offer summer as well as snowmester classes. Snowmester was new this last year, but kind of a cool added feature, and we are going to continue doing snowmester for semesters to come as well. For courses, something to keep in mind for some of our students if they are coming in and maybe taking classes that are not 100 level, please keep in mind that those 0 level courses do work towards the student's financial aid for full-time status, but they don't go towards that 120 count that a student needs to graduate. So that's something to have a conversation with your student about if they are in some of those 0 level courses. And then academic standing, we essentially have a 2.0 cumulative GPA. After that point, students will be put on probation. That does not mean that we kick your student out and we send them back home to live with you. Essentially, that means that we work with your student to make sure that they really feel supported and that they're set up for success. After that probationary period, a student may be suspended if they do not improve that academic GPA. But there are a lot of reminders and a lot of opportunities to touch base and have a conversation before we get to that point. 4 is essentially all of the generals that you guys might hear about. It is essentially 10 categories that we ask a student fulfills before they graduate from MSU. This does not mean that a student needs to take all of these classes in their first year. It means that they need to take them over the course of 4 years. And a lot of these are actually built into their curriculum, right? We do have them divided into foundational courses. These are going to be a lot of the classes that your students maybe have college level credit in, or maybe have a little bit more experience with in high school. And then we do also have ways of knowing. These are kind of classes that are awesome and fun and challenge a student's way of thinking. The big reminders is that a student must receive a C or better to get that core credit. And so if your student is struggling at all, we do recommend that they take advantage of some of our academic services so they can take advantage of that core credit that they have taken. College level credit, I get questions from parents all of the time about if my student has taken an AP class or my student took a class at a local community college, how does this transfer? We accept any college level credit from any regionally accredited institution. It just depends on how it transfers in. So we do recommend going to this transfer site. We know that a lot of your students worked with their advisors during the online orientation to cover this piece, but if you still have questions about transfer credit, please let us know. The big things to keep in mind is just to make sure that we get any official test scores and any official transcripts sent our way. And so that way we can mark it down and they can continue to work with their advisors during the course registration. And then academic assistance. We always remind students that they have a lot of these resources, but I do think it kind of hits different when someone calls home and says, I'm really struggling in an English class. I don't know where to go, and their parent can actually recommend to them that we have all of these different resources and services on campus. The Writing Center and the Math Learning Center are completely free. They have both walk-in and appointments available, and those are housed in Wilson Hall. We have departmental help centers. Smarty Cats tutoring is only $2 for an individual session. There's actually research that shows if you continue to go to a tutor, you're more likely to do well in your classes, right? And so we recommend that students actually buy them in packs of 5. So $10 on your first charge, but then continuing to get those services and help. We do also have drop-in tutoring now, and that's free, that's accessible to students, and that's housed in the library. We do also have a lot of different study groups. Students can always go in and chat with their professors during their office hours. And then I will mention that the Advising Commons and their advisor is one of the largest resources that they will have over the course of their 4 years. I still talk to my advisor. I literally had a phone call with my advisor last week talking about grad school. It's a great opportunity to form a connection with someone who knows a lot about a lot of different resources and services on campus and can help them over the course of their 4 years. Any questions about those pieces before we move on? No, that was a little bit review. Okay, living on campus. Move-in this year is scheduled for August 21st through August 24th. Starting June 1, we opened the sign-up portal, and so students can go in and sign up for their move-in time. If your student has not already, they need to go online, sign up for that move-in time, and make sure that they have scheduled it between the 21st and 24th. That is required for any students that are living on campus. We understand that some students might be exempt, so that doesn't apply, but this is the big reminder if they haven't done it already, they need to. When students check into their residence halls, the very first thing that they're going to do is they're going to receive their CAT card, which is that student ID. That CAT card is how they're going to get in and out of the residence halls throughout their time residing on campus. They do have RAs and RDs to help them. Those are resident advisors and resident directors. We have an RA and an RD for every floor and every hall. And I really think that those kind of act as the middleman between residence life leadership and the students, right? And so if your student is having a hard time with their roommate or having a challenging time just in the living environment or meeting friends or just understanding the MSU community and transitioning from high school to college, I would really recommend that the first stop would be talking to their RA on their floor. When they check in at move-in, they are going to review some expectations and requirements for living in the residence halls. If you guys have really, really specific questions about those requirements, Residence Life is doing a session throughout orientation, so you can always direct them there. But they do a really great job about making sure that students have a good understanding of what those expectations are. If they do want to make any changes throughout the year, that is obviously something that we can work with the student on. Typically earlier in the year and at semester is when we can accommodate those changes a little bit more. And so we recommend that they chat with their RA if they are looking to potentially change roommates or change halls, but we can have a little bit of flexibility in the first few weeks and also mid-semester. Big reminder, thank you, Jess, continue to check your email, especially leading up to move-in, because they're going to send a lot of information about parking, the traffic route, what to bring with you, what to expect. And so we recommend that they make sure their email address is updated on MyInfo. And then we do just mention that we have options for sophomore and above. We get a lot of questions from parents about the fact that maybe their student is residing on campus for the first semester, but they need a lot of help finding the next move. The Dean of Students Office does have a webinar every single year, as well as a web page about living off campus. I would always recommend that students look at their both Facebook pages, all of the groups that maybe are online, because I know that's how a lot of students find subleases or apartments. But if they have questions about that, they can always chat with their RA too, because Residence Life does offer some resources. What to bring with you? So for students living in the residence halls, we do have an extra long twin bed, unless you were in 2 specific residence halls, the Quads and Roski. Otherwise, we would totally recommend bringing anything that students might need for their desk and studying, any shower items. We do have different showers based on the residence hall that you're in, and so we do recommend, potentially having like caddy or shower shoes or something to bring with you. Laundry items, students do laundry by using their cat card and swiping their cat card. And so we do recommend, of course, bringing anything with you that you might need to use there. Linens, general appliances that you might need, anything that you might want to have in your room, so decoration, shelving. We do have a little bit more of an extensive list on our move-in page, but generally, twin bed, closet, trash can, desk and chair is what is provided to our students. In terms of dining on campus, we have 2 meal plans. When your student registered for housing, they requested one of those meal plans. So they either got a 5-day or a 7-day meal plan. The difference between the rest of the meal plans is the amount of cat cash that goes on their student ID. So we start down at the lowest amount all the way up to the highest amount. And that cat cash can be used on campus through our laundry services, our food services, the bookstore. And so it's kind of like your on-campus debit card. Totally not a requirement, but if students get really excited about it or want to have that on-campus debit card, they can continue to add cash to it throughout their time at LSU as well. Students can eat in the dining halls if they have a meal plan unlimited. They can go in as many times as they like. They can eat as much as they eat. We don't track you down. We do have a nutritionist and a dietary specialist on staff. This is really important for students that maybe are facing some dietary restrictions. Everything that's in the residence hall is marked with their nutritional background. It actually has all of like the calories, what's in it, allergens. And then we do also have that nutritionist on staff. So if you wanted to request a walkthrough, students can actually say like, hey, I'm gluten-free, I'm having a hard time finding something in the dining halls. And that nutritionist will walk around with you and show you some different meal plan options. Huge focus on sustainability. With our students living on campus, we've actually been able to become more sustainable, even though we've been accommodating more students. That's a huge effort by our culinary services team. Some super fun events and themed meals throughout the year. And a big reminder that we have commuter plans. So if your student isn't living on campus or if they decide to move off campus after their first year, the commuter plan is a great option because they can continue to eat in the dining halls for a limited number of meals, even though they might not be living on campus. Anything about living and dining on campus before we move on? Yes.
This is more of a clarification, but are they getting their tax cards at orientation or when they move into the residence?
When they move into the residence halls.
Okay, so that's different, right?
Yes and no, but we'll for sure clarify for you guys before the in-person summer sessions. During online orientation, we recommend that they upload their picture, and so they get that piece done in advance. So all they have to do when they check in is pick up that card and go on their way.
Okay.
Yeah. Claudia.
Can you add additional cat cash onto your card?
You can, yeah. So even if students are kind of wavering on like how much they might need cat cash, I always recommend that they can choose one of the lower amounts because then you can always add on if you decide that you do need more throughout the year, if you get a job on campus, that kind of thing.
And they get refunded at the end of the semester.
News to me, gets refunded. That's excellent.
If it's more than
Yeah,
it's the same last semester.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it just.
Something we can look into, but cat cash is like an on-campus debit card.
What does laundry look like in the building? What does laundry look like? 'Cause
Yeah, so they usually have like a laundry room where they have multiple machines and then you go in and you swipe your cards and you can select if you're using the washer or dryer.
Is it still $2 per load?
Well, $2 for washer, $2 for dryer.
So $4 a load.
Yes.
I like always have to pay for it, Jax.
Okay. Our next piece is about student health and well-being. We do get a lot of questions from parents about what if my student is sick, because we understand that parents have pretty much always been with their student or family members when they've potentially been sick in the past. And so we do have ways to support them here on campus. University Health Partners essentially houses 4 main kind of areas. The first one being medical services. This is essentially their on-campus care. If they ever need to see a doctor, if they ever need a checkup, if they need an x-ray, all available here on campus. Dental services is essentially if they need to go in and they need a general checkup, cleaning, mouth guard fittings, those pieces. If it is a more extensive specialist that is needed, such as like an orthodontist or something like that, they do have recommendations for folks in the community that are off campus as well. And then pharmacy, we always recommend that students can transfer their prescriptions here and pick it up right on campus so they don't have to leave campus or find a ride. It's super easy, super accessible for students, and ultimately not too far away. Counseling and psychological services is going to be one-on-one options, but we also have a lot of different services. I think sometimes people think when they think of counseling session, they think just one-on-one, but we do also have varying ways of supporting our students in mental health as well. So some of those being crisis intervention, if they need to chat with someone right now, right away, we have ways of connecting them with someone immediately. We do have connection spaces, we have online self-help resources and trainings. And the Office of Health Advancement is also a really nice resource as well. They essentially help students in transition, if they need wellness coaching, if they need to chat with someone, if they're battling some addictions or overcoming those addictions. They have a variety of different resources that are available too. And I will just mention with insurance, when you're student registered for classes during online orientation, they have the option of selecting insurance on campus or waiving it if they're covered through another family plan. So if you guys have more questions about that, we can chat. Ultimately, students can use any of our services regardless of whether they're covered through the MSU insurance or our family plan. But just some things to kind of keep in mind for when they registered for classes previously. Safety on campus, the MSU alert system is something that parents often sign up for. Essentially, it alerts a student via voicemail, text, email, if there's anything that is happening on campus. They can be as small as a phishing attack if there's like a bunch of emails being sent out that have spam links, or it can be something a little bit more serious, right? And so this is essentially our reactive way of handling that situation and notifying everyone, but we do also have a ton of preventative safety measures on campus. One of those is the Safety Cat app. That's essentially where you have an app. You can request an escort. You can share your location with someone. If you leave the sub and you want someone to track you until you get home, you can ping their location. You can also connect with MSU PD. Their office or their building is actually right down here from the Student Union building. It's right down 11th and Grant. And so it's a great opportunity for you guys just to have a better understanding of MSU PD as a whole as parents and making sure that your students feel supported and safe on campus. Some additional services would be the emergency blue light systems. These have not had to be used at all in any recent years, but it is a resource on campus. Essentially these giant white posts with blue lights at the top. If there's an emergency, you can hit it. It notifies UPD immediately and they can send someone to help you. The residence halls have 24-hour lockdown. That's why we have those CAP cards so they can access them and go. We do have resident advisors on each floor that are trained extensively through our health and well-being services, our UPD services and more. Police escorts, well-lit campus. Generally, when I was a student on campus as a female, I did not feel unsafe really ever, if anything, and I knew that there were a lot of services in place to make sure that I was supported in that. And we do have a silent witness program as well, so that's essentially if there's anything that is happening on campus and they want to report that, it's essentially a program where you can send in notifications that something is happening that might want to be, that UPD might want to be alerted to. Yeah.
I've seen blue lights around like other campuses, but where are ours located?
Yeah, they're usually along our sidewalks or like our malls. So for example, there was one over kind of like the libraries. There is going to be one down by the dining hall by Rendezvous. I'm sure there's one close to the sub as well, but I can't think of it all.
The one that you used to be able to see pretty easily was the one in Romney Yard.
Yeah, and Vogel. Yeah.
I'm sure those are, unless we put back up, because the one on the mall's not there anymore. I haven't seen them getting tours in a while.
I can look into it and like make sure that we have their locations and everything.
Yeah.
We do have them still on campus. I'm not sure if they're still like down by the residence halls too, but we can look into it.
So I just haven't seen them on, see them a lot.
Yeah,
There's one.
there was one what?
There's one in our building.
One in Garfield. So we do still have them around and we still promote it as a safety feature, but I can get you guys more information there. Employment and financial assistance. We understand that working on campus, A, can give students a lot of really great experience and connections. B, can help financially support students as they pursue higher education. Hire a Bobcat is the website that students can go to if they're looking for on-campus work. We do also have bulletin boards around campus that promote some on-campus opportunities, and we send out a lot of emails as well. But my first recommendation would be to check out Hire a Bobcat. Students can work in the dining halls, work in the Office of Admissions, work in our health services. There's a lot of different options. This is also where students can look and get a little bit more support for some of their long-term goals. We do host a career fair twice a year. We bring in over 300 vendors throughout the year to hire our students, whether that be for short-term work, internships, or post-grad. We do also have career coaching as well as connecting students with employers. Tuition payment plans. Essentially, you would set this up with our student accounts office. A tuition payment plan means that you break your bill for one semester into 3 installations. So they pay their first portion when they come to campus before the 15th day of classes. You then pay your second installation right around end of September, October, and then your third one in November. And you can set those up for every semester as well. Financial Education Office is a huge help for students understanding financial aid and their resources and their loans, but also just long-term planning in terms of budgeting and maybe making sure that you're set up for success financially long-term. And CAT scholarships is essentially anywhere that you can look for departmental help as well as different scholarships that are offered through like our alumni foundation or something like that. This is something that we recommend students look into year after year. Scholarships do vary based on your area of study, based on your age, based on your experiences, based on financial needs. And so there's a lot to check out, but we do need to encourage students to log in every single semester to do so. We send out a lot of emails, but as parents, we could use a lot of your help encouraging students to make sure that they are applying for scholarships from semester to semester. I got a scholarship in my senior year through EHHD, and it cut my tuition in half. It was a huge help, and it took a huge financial burden off of my family. And bill confirmation. Bill confirmation essentially needs to be completed by the 15th day of classes. We get a lot of questions from parents and family members that are maybe helping their student financially about when they need to pay the bill. That's the absolute last day. Once a student has registered for classes, their bill gets generated based on if they're a full-time status and whether they have financial help. The first place that we would recommend a student looks at their bill is My Info. That's where it's going to break down your financial aid awards, what you potentially owe. There are 3 ways to confirm your bill. You can do one just with your credit card online through My Info. So if you and your student go on together, look at your bill, feel like it's accurate, you can submit that online. We do have the option to mail in a check or a money order to our student accounts office. Student accounts is housed in Montana Hall. Or you can visit that in-person cashier window at the student accounts office. I do like to clarify, student accounts is responsible for bill collection. Financial aid is responsible for the financial aid that you see listed on your bill. So depending on your specific question, we might direct you to 2 different places, but that's kind of the best thing to keep in mind is that if you're trying to pay your bill, you go to student accounts. If you have questions about your scholarships or your financial aid, then financial aid is going to be your best option there. We do recommend that you check out our financial aid website. They have the confirmation list there to kind of help you through some instructions as well. And this is also a big reminder, this is why this is underlined, even if you have all of your bill paid for through other sources, such as financial aid, or if you're getting help through VA benefits or something like that, you still need to go online and confirm that that information is correct and that it's being provided by another source. So that's a big reminder for families and students as they navigate the financial piece. Questions? Okay, I'm going to cruise through this information real quick here just so we can do the review game. OSE, lots of different opportunities to get involved. We're going to highlight the club's community engagement, campus programs, as well as our student government. We do have a Division I athletics program for any of our NCAA sports, but we also have club sports and intramurals to get involved, right? kind of varying levels of commitment for those. Outdoor rec is an opportunity to take advantage of our outdoor playground. There's a lot of different rentals that are available, clinics, workshops. It's a great student employment opportunity, great way to take advantage of something that you maybe have never tried before. And then MSU debut. We get a lot of questions from parents that they drop off their student and they're really nervous that in the first few days their student hasn't maybe connected with someone or made friends. They're looking for a way to connect. MSU debut is coming back for fall 2021. Get excited. It might look a little bit different than fall 2019, but ultimately it's the place to go if you're trying to make connection and trying to get engaged. It's our way of making sure that students feel supported in their first few weeks. The full schedule of events is going to be posted at the MSU debut calendar when we approve it. I think these are some of the events to highlight. Pink DM, Catapalooza is where we have a lot of different info tables and information for clubs and organizations. Gold Rush football game is the first game of the year where everyone wears gold. So lots of different things to get your students connected in their first few days. All right, and as we kind of close out the presentation here, I just wanted to remind everyone of some common questions and resources that we have. Transportation. If your student is bringing a vehicle to campus, they are required to buy a parking permit. We recommend that you buy that parking permit ASAP if they haven't already. As soon as they register for classes, they have that student ID, they can go into the parking portal and they can buy a parking permit. We typically recommend if a student's living on campus to either purchase the Bison lot or they can always purchase the stadium lot, which is a little bit cheaper as well. A student by no means needs a vehicle on campus. They absolutely can get around without one, but it's always an option if you are bringing one. Biking and walking, we're an extremely accessible campus in terms of getting around and getting between buildings. We always recommend that students bring their bike if they have one. It's a really easy way to get around town, and we're a very bike-friendly community. And the Streamlined bus service is a free bus service for students. There is late night opportunities as well. So if a student's going from the library downtown or meeting up with a friend at a restaurant or something like that, there's ways of getting around without having a vehicle. Pack cards, students will pick it up when they check in. If you have questions about that, it's housed in Miller Dining Complex. Buying books. We get a lot of questions about books. The MSU bookstore is a nonprofit, which means that we should stand behind them in supporting students and promoting their options. The reason it's a nonprofit is that we can also then keep our book expenses inexpensive and low for students, which is our goal. And so we always recommend the MSU bookstore, but ultimately students can buy their books online. They can buy them from a friend. They can buy used. There's a lot of different ways to get their materials that they need. We do have the syllabus posted on D2L a few weeks or days prior to class, so students can buy their books in advance as well. And then confirming their bill by the 15th day of classes. This kind of gives you a good idea of the upcoming semester and what to get excited about. Classes first kick off on the 25th, and then they conclude on December 16th. The registrar's office has already posted a calendar, so you can check that out if you need to buy flights back home, or if you're planning a vacation, or you're just looking to when you can connect with your students next. Here's a bunch of different resources. This is the exact same list that is on your guys' tips and tricks guide. And then this is your opportunity to tell a story about your transition to campus, kind of make sure that they have a little bit of time to digest all of that information before we jump into Q&A. But really great opportunity to just kind of share what it was like for you guys as you transitioned from high school to MSU. Any questions about this presentation as a whole? I know that was really fast, especially near the end, but we want to make sure that you guys have time to do the review game and do the quiz. What we can do is we are going to be sharing this PowerPoint on D2L. You have that tips and tricks guide. You can always watch the recording back. The way I like to think of this presentation is it's really a combination of a bunch of presentations that you give to students, right? Like none of this information should be brand new, but you're basically pulling all of the different presentations that you've already kind of learned about into one just for parents. Yeah.
For those parking permits, I thought they opened beginning of August, or is that just for computers? So not campus can do it now.
Thought they opened in June. I can check on that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just computers, because I don't know if that was for a long time back.
Yeah, I thought that they opened June 1 last year, and so that's why I was saying like, go buy one ASAP. But essentially, it'll happen over the summer, and so then once that opens, they can go in using their student IDs. Other questions? All right, wake up, stand up. Everybody stand up. Shake it out. Woo-hoo! All right, we're gonna do a review game. This review game is on your cell phone. You are not in teams, you are doing it yourself. So your biggest competition is everyone. And yourself. Challenge yourself. No, you can sit back down. I was just making sure that you guys were awake and alive and ready to play. All right, so you guys are gonna go to gimkit.com. Has anyone ever played this before?